So, you're probably thinking, wow, I have no idea how the moon works, or how eclipses work, or how to do basic human functions. Well, fret not. I can teach you how the first two work. Except the last one. Last one is out of the question. Learn that yourself. So, I'm going to pretend to be the smartest man for about a couple minutes till this is over. Okay, so theoretically, the moon was created when a big space rock or planet crashed into Earth, and then a small planet was created from the rubble. A good way to think of it is a planet was a speeding car and Earth was a brick wall. Fun fact, the moon is actually slowly drifting away from Earth, and we only have 9 billion years for those sick tides are gone. Now the moon is orbiting around Earth, and because of the crash, the moon is tilted orbit around Earth, about 5 degrees off. This is pretty big, because this is what causes eclipses and causes some moon phases, and why it seems to change shape. Now, when you look up at the sky in the night and you see the moon, you probably remember, hey, I don't normally see the moon, or stars, because of clouds and light pollution. Also, you probably wonder why the moon sometimes looks different. Well, that's because of the moon's orbit. The moon's orbit is a lot slower. It takes around 27 days to orbit the Earth. And because of the position of the sun, the moon doesn't always get light. During the first phase, the moon is directly, but also not directly because of the tilted orbit in front of the sun. And because of this, it gets light on the side facing the sun, which causes the moon not to seem like it's going to be there in the first place. It also does not light the sky. Second phase is when 1/4 of the moon is revealed, and is called a waxing crescent. The third phase is called the first quarter, because a quarter of the moon has been revealed. The fourth phase is called waxing gibbous, when a third of the moon has been revealed. The fifth phase is when the moon is completely lit up, which is called a full moon. And because of the tilted orbit, the moon is slightly above Earth, which causes it to be able to get light from the sun, which then reflects down to Earth to make it look like it's bright in the sky. Now, the sixth phase is a waning gibbous. It's basically the reverse of the fourth phase. Then there's the third quarter, which is the reverse of the third phase. Then there's the last phase, the waning crescent, which is the reverse of the second phase. And then we're back here. The cycle repeats. And now how is the same side of the moon always shown? That's because of synchronous rotation. Synchronous rotation is when the moon and Earth are rotating in synchronization. And that's how the moon, same side, is always seen. Now what about eclipses? Well, eclipses are really simple. Because of tilted orbit, this causes the moon to only have solar and lunar eclipses 2 times a year, around that much. And the point where the moon is even with Earth is called lunar nodes. Think of the ring around Earth and 2 dots, and those are lunar nodes, and they'll vary every few months, weeks, whatever. A lunar eclipse is by far the most uninteresting thing that can happen. Nobody cares if the moon is red. We see it every time there's a wildfire. But lunar eclipses are much easier to see, as a big area will see it, and will mostly stay longer, and most of the people will see it with a direct, full lunar eclipse. But how does this happen? Well, it can only happen during a full moon, and when it goes directly into Earth's shadow, the Earth's shadow is composed of the umbra, which is the inner part, which is much darker and more concentrated shadow, and the penumbra, which is on each sides of the Earth's shadow and is just less concentrated and less darker part of Earth's shadow. Now, when the moon goes into the shadow, the umbra, what happens is it turns red, which is where the word blood moon comes from and not super interesting, in my opinion, because it gets no light from the sun. Now, real people who like solar eclipses. And the realist people are people who chase solar eclipses. A solar eclipse happens when the moon directly lines up with the sun and Earth. It only happens during a new moon. When this happens, two things happen. 1, the sun is completely covered by the moon. 2, the Fire Nation loses its powers. The solar eclipse is one of the coolest things, and also is dangerous to look at, surprisingly. Remember, there was one close to Washington who made cereal boxes, and we're looking into them. They would show the shadow of the solar eclipse. Basically, it was just a cheap version of a solar eclipse, and 0 out of 10, I would not recommend it, unless you just have cereal boxes and tinfoil lying around. Then I would recommend it. So the thing is, the most important thing we learned is always stare directly at a solar eclipse, see how long you can go for, and maybe you'll beat my record. I'm not telling you my record. I don't have a record. Like, 0 seconds. Trust me, there's nothing that could go wrong, and this could not contradict anything I said in my script. Also, when I was doing some research, I realized a transit of Venus exists. Search it up, it's really cool. And it's such a small thing that happens once every more than 100 years. Even more, it's like 243 years or something like that. I don't know. It's just a small black dot. Search it up, it is insane. Doing research. Well, that's about it. Guess you know what the moon is now. It exists.